the topic we're going to be talking about today is balance and symmetry. Okay? So think about when you guys were babies, you know, what did you need to know in order for you to walk, like kind of like this? What was the first thing you had to learn? Be able to stand, right? Exactly. And how can you do that?
Need help from other parents, or other people.
Sometimes you need somebody to help you stand, right? So I have a baby who's only 1 now. He just turned 1. So he learned how to walk. The first thing, you know, he had to learn was balance. So you guys agree with that? Balance is the first thing you need to learn. Okay. What about if I want to learn a new sport? Let's say I want to learn how to surf. What do I need to learn in order to stand on the board? I'm going to need to learn how to balance on the surfboard, right? Which is a little bit different than just standing on the ground. So that's what I'm going to need to learn first. Okay, what else? Any other sports that you want to learn, you're going to need to have a certain balance, right? So let's say in life, okay, so you guys go to school, you have work, and you have your own lives as well. So how can you balance everything?
Schedule.
You try to do schedules, right? And this is very important. Even when we go to church, we hear about this subject, right? We need to achieve balance. Because let's say if we're going to school here, but we just study like 24 hours a day. And we even forget to eat. Is there a balanced life? No, I'm not saying you shouldn't study, but so we have to have a balance, right? So we need time also for what? To relax or to do something that you like practice sport or, you know, exercise. So this is what I'm trying to say here. So balance is something that we use in our lives like every single day, right? So we need balance in order to learn how to walk, to practice a certain sport, and we need balance, you know, in our own lives. So let's talk about design now. Sometimes, I don't know if you heard, but when people look at certain designs, sometimes they say, oh, this is kind of out of balance. Have you guys heard anybody saying like this? Do you have any idea what, you know, people mean when they say that?
The items on the picture are not connected together.
Yeah, they're not connected. There's something wrong, right? The way they're distributed in the space, right? So let's talk about this too. There are 2 systems here that usually control balance. And one is called symmetry and asymmetry. Okay, so what is symmetry? Yeah, go ahead.
The same on both sides.
It's the same on both sides. So it's like a mirror image. Okay, so imagine here in your minds, let's say, I'm going to draw a butterfly here on the screen, okay? And then if I make a line in the middle, like Clark said, the image is going to be the same in both sides. Okay, what are some other examples of perfect symmetry? You can think about nature or...
Our bodies, for the most part, are
True, right? So most of us, you know, is like symmetrical. So if I draw a line, okay, so it should be the same in both sides. So we have, you know, the eyes, you know, and the arms and legs. Okay, some it's interesting though, because I had a class for figure drawing. This is back in Brazil, right? And we had to take photos of our face. So we took photos of the right side and we took photos of the left side. And then we played with the pictures. So we put 2 of the left sides together. So we just flipped the image, right? So we connected 2 of the left sides together and then 2 of the right side together. So we created a new face, right, with only a half of the face. And if you look at the 2 images, it was totally different. It's like two different people, you know, and it's interesting because on one side of our face is always different than the other. So, you know, a little bit, but if you want to try to do that, you're going to see how interesting it is. Okay, so maybe our bodies is like a near symmetry, but it's pretty much, you know, symmetrical. If you divide with a line, it's the same in both sides. Okay, what else? So I have an interesting illustration here in this book. So if I place a line here, is this kind of symmetrical? If I divide, it's not exactly the same. You see different colors here. Maybe this is not exactly, you know, a perfect circle, but it's pretty much symmetrical. Let's say near symmetry. Okay. What are some other things in nature that are symmetrical? Let's think about. How's snowflakes? They're symmetrical, right? Okay, here we go. Okay, so here are some examples. Snowflakes. Let's see. We talked about the butterfly, but there are a lot of interesting samples from nature that use symmetrical design. Okay, so what if we talk about asymmetrical? Okay, so it's very easy. Asymmetrical, right? It's the opposite of symmetrical. But before we get into asymmetrical, let's see some examples here of symmetry. Okay. So we talked about near symmetry is something that's almost perfect, but it's not really perfect, like this, right? It's a little bit different. So this is like near symmetry, but it's the balance is very symmetrical. There is also inverted symmetry. So let's imagine here your image is on the top, half of the image, and then you invert it. Instead of to the side, you reflect on the bottom. So the image is reflected on the bottom. So if you were to divide that image, you will have to divide it like this way instead of this way. But it's still symmetrical. It's just like inverted. So you have the top reflected on the bottom. Kind of like this example that you see here. Let's say I place a line here, and it's perfect on the bottom. And it's also here, if I place it on the middle, going this way vertically, it's also symmetrical. So this is like a very interesting example here. Okay, so this is the inverted symmetry. And this is another example here. This is a biaxial symmetry. Okay. So biaxial is when you have more than one axis. So the axes are those lines that we're talking about dividing the object. Okay, so imagine that you have several axes of symmetry. So in this one here, how many maybe we have? At least two, right? One here. Yeah, maybe more. So top and bottom can be the same as left and right is also the same. Okay. Like snowflakes, kaleidoscopes, they have three axes of symmetry. And then we have radial symmetry, which is also related to this biaxial because it's what? You can use any number, you know, and the image looks like it's going around. It's like a round, you know, symmetry. This one is kind of like a radial symmetry right here. Okay, you see this round illusion that we have. Okay, so how do you think this symmetrical compositions they usually Are they usually easy to create? Is it usually pleasing to look at something that's exactly the same, symmetrical? What do you guys think? When you look at a design such as this one or this one,
Usually this one designed for floor.
for floor, like you see a lot of floor designs, right? That's symmetrical. Okay, and so it's usually very easy on the eye, symmetry. You look at it, you know that it's balanced. You know there's nothing wrong with it, right? Because it's the weight is exactly the same in both sides. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you can't go wrong with symmetry. Okay, but what about asymmetrical? What do you think asymmetrical means? Exactly the opposite of symmetrical, right? So let's say here, this is the symmetrical. This will be the asymmetrical. So what's the difference in these two examples that you're looking at?
They don't line up. You can't explain it.
Yeah, can we draw a line here to divide? And, you know, it's not a mirror image. It's very different, the composition. Okay, but which one you guys prefer?
The symmetry is like it follow a pattern, but asymmetry is not follow a pattern, but it's balance on the picture.
It's still balanced, right? It's not, you know, perfect, exactly the same, but still balanced. Okay, and usually, what do you guys think artists, they usually prefer? They usually use more on their compositions. You think they go for symmetrical or asymmetrical?
Asymmetry.
Asymmetrical. And why is that? More movement. What else?
Creative.
More creative.
It's also really, really hard to make things symmetrical.
Symmetrical is hard, you think? It's interesting because some people, they have a hard time with asymmetrical because, you know, it's hard for them to balance. Okay, so where do I put this and where do I put that? It's hard for them to balance the weight of the elements on the space. So, and for some people, symmetrical is real easy because it's all boom, boom, repeating, you know, the same on top. And you can even now, if you learn Illustrator, you can do just copy and paste, right? And then you have your symmetrical composition. Now, it's very interesting that he said that because a lot of artists, they use asymmetrical because it's also more interesting. Okay, the composition is more interesting. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do symmetry or, you know, that's wrong. You know, there's also there is a place for symmetrical. There's a place for asymmetrical. But just for you to understand that a lot of artists, they will go with the asymmetrical on their compositions because it's a little bit more interesting. Like she said, there's a little bit more flow. You see this composition here, how your eyes go around the design, looking at all these different shapes. Okay, take a look at this two here. So this is the symmetrical and asymmetrical. Okay, so let's say you're doing an asymmetrical composition. How can you, like Brian was saying, it's you know, it's asymmetrical, but you still can see there's balance. How can you achieve balance if you're doing an asymmetrical design? Think about, yeah, go ahead.
Think of the sizes and colors of the shape.
The colors and the size is very good. What about the placement of the objects? Where you place them. Okay, think about, I have this huge shape on top, okay, and then I have this really small triangle that's holding up the big shape on top. Would that look balanced? Let's see here. So let's say something like this. It looks like the top is too heavy, right? And then the bottom is what? Small. So you feel like it's a little off balance, right? Now, there's an important thing he said. It's not only the size of the objects, but it's also the color. Take a look at this one that I have on your screen. You have a big shape there on the right side, right? And then you have some other shapes on the bottom. But look at the colors here. Which color here is the strongest, you think? Red is pretty bold, right? Pretty strong. So red is balancing a little bit here on the bottom and on the side. Okay? Even this little red circle here is doing something there, right? Balancing. What about this one? Can you see how the elements, the size of the elements are placed? There's a small circle here, a bigger one here, and a really small here. But look at how these lines, they're kind of holding everything together in place. So it doesn't look like these shapes are just floating in space. Can you see that? If I just had the shapes floating in space, would it be an interesting composition? It would just be, you know, maybe a photo of space and things floating up in the air. But these lines here is actually these curves. They're connecting everything together here, creating balance. Okay. So let's go back to the document there. So we saw different types of symmetrical, and usually on the symmetrical images, we see unity and variety. Okay, so there is usually repetition in the symmetrical, right? The image is reflected on the bottom, so it's repetition there. So there's always unity in there. And there are a very strong sense of order. So when you look at the symmetrical images, they look very organized, very clean, right? Okay, let's try and look at this paragraph here. One way to achieve balance. We're talking about the asymmetrical designs, okay? Could you read that for us, Scott? This one way to achieve balance.
One way to achieve balance that is almost a formula is to have more or less equally interesting things randomly distributed throughout the format. The effect is like a drop on the area. There is balance because interest is evenly distributed, and there is unity. The problem is that everything is likely to seem too equal and hence too uniform. There is not enough variety, and the design soon becomes boring.
Yeah, so imagine that if you just get confetti, you know what confetti is? Let's say you get little M&Ms and you drop on the page, you know? So you're going to have the M&Ms around the page. But like I said, it might be just things floating in the air, right? So you need something sometimes to balance. You need to play with the positive and negative space. Okay, remember last class I showed you the positive and negative examples? Okay, I have this book here. It's very interesting. Okay, what's the name of the book? Can you read the title? White space is not your enemy. And what do you guys think this book talks about? Negative space, like things that we're talking about today, balance, how you can achieve balance without necessarily filling the whole space with different things, you know, different elements. So you can play with the space, leaving space around. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this book, and I'm going to be showing you some things that are in here that might be helpful for you as you start working on your designs, on your projects. Okay, so this last paragraph here says that with asymmetrical, there's no rules. Okay, so I cannot tell you here, okay, put the big shapes on the bottom and do this colors, you know, against this color, so there is no rules. You have freedom, okay? And that's the attraction of the asymmetrical balance, is that there is no formula to it. Okay? So you can be creative in the way you organize the space. So now that we're talking about balance, there is another thing that I wanna talk about that kind of relates to this, to balance. And I think it was Maddie that mentioned this one time, yeah, this principle here, rule of thirds. Did you say that one time?
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, I think somebody in the class said this. Okay, the rule of thirds. How many of you have heard about this rule of thirds? Brian, you guys think? So can you guys kind of tell me what it is? If you remember. It's used a lot in photography, in videos. Here.
It just generally says that, like, if you have objects that are not always in the center or whatever, like if they're in the third of the portrait, that it's generally more interesting.
Good. So think about this. If you wanna know how to do this, divide your spacing into 3. So I'm putting these 2 lines. So now I have 3 and 3. Okay, so I'm dividing into 3 my space here. So the place where these lines are intersecting here, this is where I want to place my subject, or the point of focus, the whatever interest I have in my design. This is where I want to place. Okay, this is especially in photographs and even painting. People use a lot of this. So let me show a few examples here. These are imaginary lines, right? You don't need to have these lines actually drawn into the paper, but just imagine these lines. Take a look at this picture here. This is an example of the rule of thirds. Okay, so if I make the lines here, see that the subject's right where the line is intersecting there? Is this composition interesting? What if the guy was standing right here in the middle of the page? Would it be as interesting?
I think his image will block the picture.
He will block if you were in the middle here. What I like about this too is kind of, we don't know if he's walking this way, but there's kind of room for him to walk, right? There's space. It's not like right in the center. Let me show you another example here, so you tell me which one is more interesting. Okay, the ones of the boats here. Okay, which one is that? It's applying the rule of thirds.
First one.
The first one, right? And look at even at the horizon line. The picture on the right here, the horizon line is centered, the boat is centered. What happens to the picture here? This one.
See, nice. Just only stay over there.
Yeah, and it becomes maybe a little boring, right? So what about this one? The horizon is placed on the thirds, a little bit to the bottom. And then the boat too is also here to the left, off-centered. So you see there is kind of room for this boat to move, see? So this is a better composition here, more interesting. Now, if you guys like to watch movies, I wanted to try this at home. You can even put tape, if you want to put tape on your TV screen. Like create those, you know, the 2 lines to divide your TV in 3 and the thirds. And then you try and watch a movie. And you're going to see most of the scenes, it's always going to be like this, you know, on the thirds. I showed the class, this one time I showed a clip from the Pirates of the Caribbean. And then every single scene, you know, the students could see the rule of thirds. So the pirate, you know, when he's close-up of his face is always on a little bit to the left, not exactly in the center. And even they were showing like some dead, or some skeletons hanging, and then they had a sign that said something like, "Watch out, be careful," something like this. The sign is right into the thirds, so that's where your eye is gonna go, okay, to read that sign. So if you try and look at these some movies, you're gonna notice that they always use the rule of thirds. Okay, can you use this in your composition on design? Maybe you can as well, right? If you're doing a poster and you don't want to place something right in the center, try, change a little bit to the side and see how it will look. Okay, I'm not saying that the center compositions are bad. Okay, so there's always a place for center compositions as well. So it's just for you to know both sides. Okay, so this is basically the rule of thirds that we just talked about. So your first project, this is also on Blackboard, it's under assignments. So your first project is you're gonna create a symmetrical composition and an asymmetrical composition. Okay, so we're gonna be using Illustrator to do that. And I'm gonna show you today how to create some basic shapes on Illustrator, put color, and even draw, some freehand shapes, so you can have an idea. And if you read through this assignment page here, you're gonna see that the symmetrical composition, I want you to use only circles, triangles, rectangles, any shape that you want. But try to do something that's not recognizable. So it's not really like a face of a dog or, so try to go abstract on this one. Because I don't want you to be worried about, trying to draw something, but we're going to be using just shapes. So it doesn't have to be anything recognizable. Okay, so no reference to subject matter. That's what I mean. Nothing that you can recognize. So how can you start, you think, with your ideas here? So you're basically creating something like this. One asymmetrical, one symmetrical. And if you want to use the same color palettes, like in this case, you can use the same colors, or you can use different colors. Up to you. Or you can do it in black and white. Okay, so how do you think you'll start on this one here? Maybe create some sketches. Okay, so get a piece of paper, try to do some sketches. Maybe design some elements, and then we can try putting to the computer. Okay, so for the symmetrical one, you can probably draw just one side, and then you're gonna flip the image and do the other side. So you don't need to necessarily draw both sides. So you can do or inverse top and bottom. Okay. What else here? So over here, if you look at it, it's talking about, think about different combinations, proportions. So try different things. In the computer, it's real easy. So make a shape bigger, smaller. I'm gonna show you how to do that. Take it out, put it back on, and see how it looks. If you add more pieces, or if you take out some pieces of your composition. So we're creating these two compositions here in order to try to practice what? What did you learn today? The first thing. Balance. Okay, so this is what we're practicing here in this first assignment. It's trying to practice balance. So that's why I don't want you to worry about drawing anything that's recognizable. So say, oh, my dog doesn't really look like a dog, My dog looks so funny. So don't worry about this. You're doing abstract, and you just think about shapes and trying to do this exercise to learn balance. What about the asymmetrical here? Some of you guys might find a little harder to create, but same way, try adding elements, taking out, changing size of your shapes. And so there are some suggestions here. Maybe start with few large shapes and then add some smaller shapes, and try to have that flow as some of this that we look. Try not having the shapes just floating in the air, looking like they're lost in space, but have something to connect them, to have a flow. Okay, one of the things here, the last paragraph says, test the balance by turning the composition around, okay? So you turn the composition around and you see if it looks balanced. I don't know if you guys have done any drawing classes before, but sometimes what do we do with our drawings when we're learning how to draw? We have to draw upside down, and then we have to look at our drawings in different directions to see if we see anything wrong on the proportions. Okay, so kind of the same thing. Look at your composition from different directions and see if you still find balance. And sometimes, because you're doing something abstract, you might do your composition this way, and then when you turn it, you say, oh, it looks better this way. So it's okay. You can leave it whichever way you want. So do you guys want to see some samples from past students?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want you to be influenced by these projects, because see, you can still come up with your own. I had open here somewhere. Okay, let's take a look. I don't remember what I have on this folder, but let's take a look here. So you can talk about, if you think it's bad or if it's good, because nobody's here, so they won't be offended if you say, oh, this is not very good balance. Or, okay. Okay, so let me show you this one first. Okay, this one we put together. So we have this is the symmetrical and this is the asymmetrical, right? You don't need to put them on the same page. You can do two different documents. Okay, so this I put just so you can take a look how they look side by side. Okay, so what kind of symmetry you guys think this one is that he used? Radio, right? Looks like the radio. So how many axes we have here? At least one here, and maybe one here as well. Diagonal. See that? Now, do you find balance on this one, on this composition? Yeah. Is it interesting? It is, right? Even like it's symmetrical, but still interesting. And how do you think he achieved that on this symmetrical composition? Look at did he use colors? No. What else? Is he playing here with positive and negative space? Yes, right? See how sometimes you have the circle, the circles here, the small circles in black, small circle in white. Okay, so what about this black shape here, that's behind the white circle? So look how he's achieving here. He has a lot of contrast on this composition, the black and white. Okay. And there are some lines here. The lines, you see how they're connecting all these shapes together here. And these lines as well. These lines, no, the circles. See how they're connecting everything together? you think your eye, the lines draw your eye to the center, or maybe outside, like an explosion, something like this. Okay, what about this bottom one? Let's talk about the bottom one here. Do you guys get an idea of depth on this composition? You see depth, perspective, and why is that? The circles are getting smaller, right? Is that flow? You guys get some flow on the design? Looks like it's moving, right? This way. Okay, so how did he achieve this on the composition? The placement, the size of the objects. There is also this shape here connecting the circles. See that? So when you look at this, it's kind of, you can kind of see some balance, right? When you look at this composition. Okay, what about this other one here? Symmetrical or asymmetrical? It's not on your screen?
It's asymmetrical.
All right. Asymmetrical, right? You guys cannot see it. So again, you have the different shapes here. Is it kind of nice? You guys think it's balanced? It's okay. This one. Asymmetrical, but it's a little bit more, the person decided to go a little bit more organic, right? Did design the freehand shapes. So let's see figure out some different ones here. Asymmetrical, symmetrical. There's another symmetrical one. Now this kind of reminds me of the designs from some of the Polynesian islands, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at tapa cloth, how many of you have seen tapa cloth before? If you go to PCC, you see a lot, right? How is usually the design of the tapa? It's usually very symmetrical, right? So if you put the lines, and sometimes they use maybe symbols from nature, right? But it's a very thing. If you're looking for inspiration, maybe look at the tapa designs for the symmetrical. Okay, another one symmetrical here. This one here, can you kind of see how it looks like it's moving? And why is that? Get the illusion that everything it's moving around, right? So let me see if there is any more good examples I can show you. This one here, it's not too bad, asymmetrical. Different. Symmetrical. And it's okay if you decide on your symmetrical to do like near symmetry, so the colors are not exactly the same. It's okay, as long as you look at it and you pretty much can tell, okay, it's kind of the same if you draw a line, okay? So let's take a look here on Illustrator and see how we can get started on drawing these basic shapes. Okay, so let's open Illustrator. It's this program here. I'm going to unblock your screens now.
It's already unblocked.
Oh, yeah? Okay. So we're going to open Illustrator, this program here, the yellow icon, AI. So how can we create a new document? We're going to go to File, New. And you're going to see here, it's going to ask me for the name of my project. So let's say, remember this, always want your last name on the file. Because you might send through Blackboard, and then when I download it from the digital Dropbox, it has no name, and then I was like, okay, who created this project? So it's hard for me to grade. So put your last name. And maybe for this one, symmetrical. Oops. Okay, now for Illustrator, usually when you create the file, you're going to have an extension after the name. Like you have on a Word document, what do you have? Dot, D-O, D-O-C, D-O-X, that was changed. So in Illustrator, you have .ai. So that's the extension for Illustrator. The number of artboards is like how many pages you want, how many artboards to work on. So you can do one. If you want to create one symmetrical, one asymmetrical. And here's the size. So you can do letter, which is the size 8.5 by 11. Tabloid is 11 by 17. So, and then you have A4, A3. Or you can do custom. You can put your own measurement here. Okay, now the units here, you notice is on points. You can change, if it's easier for you, inches. You change it to inches. So now you see here, 8.5 by 11. Okay, so you can change the units here. Okay, so let's open an 8.5 by 11. What if I want it to be square? I can make 11 by 11 here. Let's open and see. Okay, so see now my document here is square. So for this one, I don't mind, what kind of format you're doing. If you want to try it on square, it's fine with me, or it can be rectangular. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the tools here on Illustrator. Hopefully you kind of watched the tutorials already for Illustrator, and you'll understand a little bit of the tools here. But if you go here on the rectangle, you click and hold, you see there's a little black arrow here on the corner. That tells me that there are more tools over here that are hidden that I cannot see. Okay, so I have the rectangle tool, rounded rectangle, ellipse, the polygon, the star, and the flare. Okay, so let's draw with this shape so you can see how it works. So you can stretch with your mouse there and create the shape the size you want. Okay, so what if I want to make something that's exactly a square? So I want to put the measurements. How do I do it? You can just double click if you want on the document, and we'll give you the window here for the options for the size. So let's say I want a square that's 2 inches by 2 inches. So it will give me the square like this. And what if I think, well, oh, okay, this is too small. I want a little bit bigger. So I can go here, you see from the corner. Now if I want to keep the proportions, what should I do on Illustrator? I hold Shift. So remember this, very important. If you don't want to distort your shape, hold Shift, and then you click and drag. So you see that I click and drag. So you can try doing on your screens if you want. You can kind of practice along with me. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these other shapes here. Rounded rectangle. You see it's a rectangle with the rounded edges here. What if I want to make this a little more round, the edges? Can I do that? I can the same way. So if I double click, if I select that rounded rectangle, I'll double click here. And you see I have something here that's called radius, the corner radius. So if I change this, let's say to 4, you see how it's a little bit more round now? Okay, let's see some other shapes here. Ellipse. Can you do a perfect circle here? You can. You just hold Option. Okay, so actually, it's not Option. You hold Shift. Okay, these two are very interesting, the polygon and the star tool. Take a look at this one, the polygon. How many sides you see here on the shape? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is this a polygon? Okay, what if I want more sides over here to my shape? I can go, look at this, with the arrows on your keyboard. If you move the arrows up, you're still holding the mouse down. Move the arrows up, you add sides to your shape. See that? If I move the arrows down, you take out some sides from your shape. So now I have 5 sides, 4 sides, and 3. So I cannot go lower than 3. 3 is a triangle, right? So with the arrow tool on the keyboard, you go up and down. Okay. And the other tool is also similar to this one. The star tool, look at this. I can change the number of sides to my star. Going with the arrow up, I add more points. See that? And then if I do one here, with the arrow down, I take out some sides from the star. Okay, so this is just to teach you how to create the shapes on Illustrator, which tools to use. The other tool here, the flare tool, it's more like something for decoration. Okay, so when you take a picture and you have your camera against the sun and you get a flare on the lens. So this is kind of what this tool is. This is the flare tool. So you basically just hold, and then if you drag, you can create different glares on your screen, flares or whatever. Okay, it's an interesting tool. Some students, sometimes they incorporate to their designs and come up with something creative. Okay. All right, now how do I put color inside these shapes on Illustrator? Very, very easy. If you take a look over here on the bottom of your tool palette or your toolbar, you see there's 2 different squares here. Okay, so we get one. This one here is the fill. So if you click and hold, you're gonna see, usually it says fill or no. This one is the fill color. So it's whatever color is inside the shape. And this one that's in black now, you can see there's just the outline, is usually called stroke. So stroke is the outline. Okay, so do I have a stroke on these shapes? I have a black outline, so that's my stroke. Okay, so what if I want to make this outline thicker, because now it's very thin. What if I make my stroke bigger? If you take a look up here, you see the stroke? I can change the amount of points here on my stroke, and look what happens here. So now I have a 19-point stroke, and before this ones I only had 1 point. So you can change the size of your stroke right here on top. Okay, so what if I want to change the color? I don't want it black. Look at this. If you just double click on this, on the stroke here on the bottom, it will give you the color picker here. So when you select the color, it's going to show you here what color you have now and what color you're selecting here. So let's say I want this color. I changed over there. Okay. And then same for here. If I want to put some color on the inside of the shape, I'm going to double click, select color for the inside. Let's select a light blue. So I'm kind of working here what kind of colors, analogous. Remember the colors that are close together on the color wheel. Okay, so I selected a lighter blue for the inside, a darker blue, or I don't know, purple on the outside. Okay, so what if I don't want to have this outline? I just want the inside color. I click on the stroke and I do, make sure you select this first. And then you click on this red bar going across that says none. Okay, so if I click over here, sorry, I need to select my object first. I forgot to do that. Select your object and now you do none. So that stroke is gone. So it tells me here I don't have a stroke. I only have a fill on this shape. Okay, you see that? Now, one thing on Illustrator, very interesting. It's important for you to think this way on Illustrator. Think about shapes. They usually stacked on top of each other. Look at this shape here. I had white on the inside, right? So when I put on top of the blue, look at that. It looks like I cut into the shape, but I didn't. It's just what stacked on top of the other shape. So this, you can do this on Illustrator. You don't need to, draw this whole, outline here on the blue, but you just stack the shapes on top of each other. So let's say here I don't want the outline, so I click over here, get rid of the outline. So now it's just white. Okay. So the rest of the shape is still here, but because there's no outline, I cannot see it because it's against a white background. What if I put another shape behind? Let's say here. And I'm going to do this color here. I don't know. Let's see. Now, where's my star? It's hiding behind the shape. So how can I make the star come to the front? I'm going to move this shape to behind. So this is all these things that we're drawing here, they're objects on Illustrator. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, and I'm going to send it to back. Okay, I'm sending it behind everything. So you see now I have that other shape on top and this shape on top. So I can adjust the arrangement of the objects here. So if I make the shape and I don't like it, I can still come back and change my shapes. Okay. It's cool. I just click on the perspective here, got this graphic. Okay, so if you do something that you want to go back and you want to undo in Photoshop or in Illustrator, you usually do Command Z. Okay, Command Z, and you undo your. Can I get rid of this one now? To get rid of this shape. You guys trying to do on your screens? Do you have any question on creating the basic shapes? Okay, one thing I forgot to tell you here. Let me create a new document. How to rotate the shape. Let's say I have my triangle, my rectangle here, and I want to rotate the rectangle. How do I do that? Click on the selection tool. You see, always when you click on the selection tool, you see the blue outline around the shape. That means I can move the tool, I can stretch it, I can move it around, and I can also rotate the tool. So if you put your mouse here, right on the corner, you see this arrow here that's kind of rounded. That means you can rotate the shape now. Okay, so you can distort, enlarge. If you want to keep the same proportions, hold Shift. Okay. Now, one other thing here. This might be helpful for creating your compositions here. There is a tool on Illustrator that's called Pet Finder. How many of you have heard about the Pet Finder tool? Have you ever heard? Okay, I think you have. If you look at the Illustrator tutorials that I put on Blackboard, there is a lesson on this Pet Finder tool. So make sure you watch this one, because you're going to be amazed. You're going to say, whoa. And then it's going to give you a lot of ideas to work on this assignment. Let me just show you what you can create with the Pet Finder. Okay, let's do another shape here. I'm going to make it black. So another thing here too, you can swap the colors here if you want. Click over here on the swap fill. Right now I have a black with pink stroke. I don't want the pink stroke, so I'm going to get rid of that. Forgot to select the object. So I have my black shape here. Okay, so let me show you here how the Pet Finder tool works. So I have this shape here right on top of the black, right? Let's do a circle instead. Let's see, oops. So I hold Shift, create a perfect circle. I'm going to make a line up here on top and bottom. Okay, now let's select the two shapes. How can I select both shapes? I hold Shift and I click the other shape. So now I have both selected here. Okay. And then if you go on the window here, you go ahead and open your Pet Finder tool right here. It's the Pet Finder window here. So I have these two shapes. And let's say I want to minus the circle from the other shape. So I click on this one here. Look what I just did. I subtracted from the rectangle. So I subtracted with using this. Okay, so let's say here I want to create a moon. A half moon. So I'm going to select the two shapes and I'm going to do the minus and I have a moon shape. So I didn't have to go and trace the whole moon, but I just put two shapes and subtract it, right? And it's basically like a student gallery that I have here. Student gallery portfolio. So these are some I'm going to be showing you on and off some examples from here according to the assignment that you're creating. Let me see which one I want. Okay, this one is the one created with the Pet Finder tool. So can you see kind of how you can create something like this with that tool, excluding the shapes, adding it together? And if it's still hard for you to understand how the Pet Finder works, go ahead and look at that tutorial that's on Blackboard that says using the Pet Finder, drawing different shapes. Look at this Illustrator tutorials and it's going to help you get very familiar with the shapes. It's very awesome, those Illustrator tutorials. Okay, now what about these designs here? This is a symmetrical design. So again, it looks like a very Polynesian design, but he created all on Illustrator. And you see some different shades here. He used the gradient tool. So how do we use the gradient tool? Let me create a new shape here. Okay, so on Illustrator, this is the gradient tool right here. Okay, so if you click on the gradient tool, you're going to notice here this gradient window pops up. Okay, so it's also here on your palette to the right. That's the gradient tool. So if I click here on the gradient line, you see it changed already my shape to gradient. And I can play with these lines here. Let's say if I want more black on this side, I'm going to move the black over this way. And this is the mid-tones. And you can also change these colors. You just double-click here, and you go in and select different colors. Now, I'm in grayscale, so if you try to change it to color, you won't be able to do it. Make sure you are in RGB or CMYK. What's the difference in between RGB and CMYK? RGB, red, green, and blue. Okay, so all the images that you see on the web uses RGB colors. Okay, what about CMYK? We have 4 colors here: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay, so these 4 images put together, they come up with the colors that you see on your computers. But CMYK is usually used for printing. Yeah, so if you look at a magazine or like a book like this, it's printed in CMYK. Usually the prints that you see in big graphic shops, it's a 4-color process printing. So that's why I have CMYK, the 4 letters here. So it's up to you. If you're doing something for the web, you can do RGB mode, or for printing, you can do CMYK. At least now you know what it is and the difference. Okay, so if I want to change the color now on my gradient, I can just click over here and I'm changing, see that, to blue. What if I want blue to yellow? I click on the white now, and you see it went back to grayscale, but I'm going to change again. So now I have blue to yellow. Okay, so that's the gradient tool. Now there are different types of gradients. We're using here the linear. There is also a radial. So the radial goes from the center out. It's the radial gradient. Usually it works best if you have a circle, right? So let's try to draw a circle here. Oops, not this tool. So let's change the colors again. So if I want to change the position of my highlight, I can also do that. Look what I do. I just click on whatever placement here on the, click on the gradient tool again. If I click on top, I'm moving my highlight to the top. You see that, what's happening? So you select the gradient tool and click on your shape. And you're changing that. Okay. So now you kind of learn drawing basic shapes, using the Pathfinder to combine shapes or subtract, add shapes. This one's kind of interesting too, because you can divide. If you have a lot of shapes on top of each other, let's say here, I have this shape and this shape, and I'm going to select both, and I'm going to click on the divide tool here on the Pathfinder. See if it worked. Yeah, see that? Interesting, yeah? It divided my shape in a lot of different pieces. So for now, I wanted to kind of play with these basic shapes. Now, another interesting thing here, if you click on the shape, you see those handles, right? If you have the white arrow here, or the This is called the direct selection tool. You can distort your shapes. Look at over here. I'm gonna click on the arrow. I distort my shape by playing with these handles here. Okay, see that? That's with the white arrow, direct selection tool. We also have the pencil tool. Like if you take a look on this one example here from the website. Where is it? This one, these two here. They're created with freehand shapes and also geometric shapes. Kind of interesting, right? Think about stacking those images on top of each other here. There's another thing I'm going to show you here. Create a new document. So for this one, I'm going to create a rectangle first on the edge over here of my document. Don't forget this step because it's very important here. And now I'm going to go with the pencil and draw some freehand shapes. Okay, so let's see here. It's kind of junk. I know sometimes it's hard to draw with the mouse, but you can try. So it's okay if your line's kind of. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I want to show you the paint bucket tool. Got this one. Looks like every time they come up with a different version of Photoshop, they change the placement of the tools. Let me try to find out where they put it now. Oh, here it is. This is the live paint bucket. Okay, so you see when I try to click over here, it tells me that I need to select the paths first, and then I'm going to click on it. So let's select all the paths, okay? And then I'm going to select the paint bucket tool. So now look what happened here. It's dividing my space into those different shapes. And then I can, if I want, I can color them, these areas in different colors. Okay, so let's see. So see, whatever the lines are intersecting here, it's creating me different paths, and then I can add colors to these different areas here. Okay, so this is how this one was created. So think about that. You can draw the geometric shapes first, and then you draw the freehand lines on top, like in this case, and then where these images intersect, you can use the paint bucket and paint in between those lines, those colors. So this is how this one was done. It's for you to have an idea. So you can keep playing with this, you know, with the software. Make sure you watch the tutorials on this, okay? I'm gonna let you play next class. Next class is Thursday. I'm gonna let you work on this a little bit in class. So if you have questions, because I know this is the first time you're using Illustrator, I'm gonna give you some time to work in class. But I want you to get started at least doing the sketches on how you're gonna do your symmetrical and asymmetrical balance. And I can help you in class to organize and come up with, help you create your designs. And And this project is going to be due next Tuesday, so it's a week from today. Okay? So next Thursday, you have to bring already your ideas, your sketches. If you want to get started on the computer, creating different things. Next class, we're going to do have some time to work in class, and we're going to do some other things as well. Okay? So make sure you bring something next Tuesday that we can work with in class. So you don't get here and just stare at the computer, you don't know where to begin or what to do. So play with some of these tools that I was introducing to you today, so you get a little bit more familiar with the program. Okay, so don't get scared. It's your first time working with these tools, and this is for you to learn the program as well. Okay, creating basic shapes.